Welcome to another after show. I am Max. This is Kat. We already have Dr. J with us, and Isa is coming shortly. How are you doing?
Doing well, Max. Doing well. These weeknight late nighters, quite a deal. You know.
Yeah,
What time is it there? I forget. Is it like it's late, isn't it?
It's 20 to 2. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty
Wow.
late. But I had some foresight and I took a nap afterwards.
Good thinking.
Yes. All right. I hope everyone is doing okay. That was, David says, that was something. Oh my God, indeed. Yes, that was. Whew, 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 whew. All right. Oh, look who we have. Pistina the First. Hello. Okay, I put that link there. Let me pin it to the top of the side chat. So if you want to join the after show, you can click the link right there. I can't thank David. This looks freaking epic. Thank you so much. Everyone, give a slash clap to David for helping with the amazing graphics. So that makes me so happy. Before we get into it, make sure to do the social things like, share, subscribe, send this to a friend, send this to your significant other, go to the corner, yes, the corner of your street, and yell, subscribe to Sherba Mate Talks. And that way we can share the lab for the channel. And we'll dive right in. Dr. J has to go, so I'll let you take it over for a little while.
Yeah, thanks, Max. I did watch the openings. I didn't see all the Q&A and all that when I watched some of the back and forth. And we were talking a little bit beforehand, and my general comment is after Daniel's opening, it just feels like Daniel went with women are dumb, so they need men to like boss them around. And I'm like, well, Daniel, if that's what you're going to go with, I guess, good luck, sir. I just I'm sure there's some women out there or people that will find that, I guess, convincing. But to me, it's like that's just hard to swallow, I would have to imagine. Now, I will give him credit because I think there are people that basically do think that, but they disguise it or they try to couch it or they try to dance around it. And, if you want to give him any credit, at least he seems to say it a little bit more straight out as far as, hey, women can't, make long-term decisions as well or whatever. Right. So that's how I felt about it. I thought she did all right. I don't know how many debates she's done. She's done some before. I think she's improving. So that's good. So I did appreciate that. They're difficult. I wouldn't mind her doing a little bit more research. It always is good to have some studies. And so I wouldn't mind seeing that from her. But in general, I thought she did all right. So those are kind of my impressions of kind of how it went.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Isa, the Prince of Peace, how are you?
Hi, I'm glad to see you, brothers. Good to see you, Hermano. Good to see you, brother Jay. I'm gonna be frank with you. I was at a movie. I didn't know this was happening. I thought it was tomorrow. So you guys are gonna have to help fill me in. I went to watch John Wick Ballerina. So,
How is it?
well, it's highly stylized. That's kind of the John Wick brand now. But I like Ana de Armas. I think she's just an excellent actress, and she's quite gorgeous. So it's very easy on the eyes to watch her in movies.
CK asks you, did Isa have a date? We saw his one super chat. Has the booty call that you keep receiving finally come through into a date?
I'm going to plead the Fifth Amendment on that.
I noticed he's not showing the passenger seat. I'm just going to point that out right now. I mean,
we got him.
You're funny, gentlemen. So that's why I try to peek into the debate, but it's my girl Mahalij. She was there from Pakistan, and Mr. Persia himself, the Prince of Persia, and what was it? Miss Pakistan was there. So
yeah.
So
He
tell me,
oh wow.
can you fill me in on some of this stuff? Let me know.
Yeah, so Daniel's basic argument in his own style was women are dumb, women need men to tell them what to do because they can't handle. Men are the bestest, men can do everything, men are superior to women and women are just inferior. That was kind of the gist of his argument. He used a barrage of citation and misquoted papers. He got some pushback on that with some super chats. I do not like that style of massively quoting papers because it's just snippets. And in my experience, I've never seen anyone who actually does that correctly references the paper. It's a real flat earther move when people do that. I have it nailed down. When I see that coming, it's like, okay, sure. That's what. Why are you showing like a fraction of the paper in a snippet? Why aren't you showing the whole thing? It's usually dishonesty.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just a point on that, Max. It's so funny that you say that because I have this like affinity toward referencing real citations, but the abuse on that we've seen in these MDD things is ridiculous. It's really it used to be like, oh, if someone's citing a real source, I'm going to find that more beneficial. But sort of the quote mining aspect that people do, not just Daniel, but others have as well, is really like, oh man, it's just sort of disappointing that I just feel like I can't trust when people cite these studies.
yeah, yeah.
I
It's
wanted to, I wanted to add one thing too, if it's okay with
yes,
just to
yeah, no
piggyback
problem.
on Dr. J. We saw that with the Hinduism versus Islam debate. We saw this exact kind of quote mining technique, and it looks good on the surface because you're not investigating. And I think a lot of the people I've seen these debates, particularly of Islam versus Christianity, and I see some of the Muslims, unfortunately, they will attack Christianity. They quote mine the New Testament. They don't actually understand hermeneutics or any of these kinds of things. And then they will, and I'm saying, of course, on the other side too, Christians will do this to Muslims as well. But I've noticed this particular technique where they're like, we're going to quote mine the text, we're not going to understand the text, and then we're going to show, hey, this is illogical, it's irrational. And I'm like, yeah, but you're using your standard to tell us this, and you're not actually representing the text in the text light. And I think that this is the problem that we're seeing. And I mean, I've seen people quote, like in one of the debates on MDD. I don't know if you saw this, but they quoted, "Drinking camel urine is good for you." There's some study about that. I'm like, you've got to be joking. Your urine is an excrement. Like there's toxins. Like you cannot drink urine. And I'm like, if there is some case that happens, we have to understand what the context of that situation is. Same thing like with say, oh, there's a vegetarian lion. Okay, maybe there's one vegetarian lion out of a million. That's insane to try to cite that to say, well, on Noah's Ark you could have a vegetarian lion. That's crazy. You
Yeah.
know.
The
I'm
other
sorry.
one that
I'm
I
sorry.
remember did that was inspiring philosophy on the MDD, the last debate con in his debate against Lawrence Krauss, just through a barrage of papers. It's like, dude, pick one and go through and represent it correctly. Because I can't shake the feeling that when someone just puts 10 papers out like that with minuscule citations, it's a strategy so that you don't get refuted in real time. What I would do if someone did that to me would be, okay, I'll take one paper, I'll refute that, and I'll just make the case that you're just lying about all of the information that you presented. So it is Daniel got some point for having a presentation. She didn't have a presentation, but his presentation like reeked of quote mining and making broad points from very specific papers. One of the papers that he cited on the super chat, it got someone tracked it down and said, Daniel, you said that men make better decisions than women uh, under pressure, something like that was the case. And it basically showed that in general, on average, men take riskier decisions for riskier rewards, and women are more conservative in that sense. So he was like flat out lying about the paper. It was pretty embarrassing. And then on her opening, um, her argument was mostly, which there is some value to her personal anecdotes, right? But her argument was mostly personal anecdotes, which I mean, it does count because she experienced exactly what they're talking about. But it went maybe a little bit heavy-handed on the personal thing. She did tie it back to the general argument, but might have benefited from making more generalized arguments rather than so much personal anecdotes. But I think she improved from the last one. She still has a little bit of an emphasis on emotion rather than the argument. But Daniel was being like a petulant child, talking about this rumor that she had thirsted for some general from Pakistan. And she explained, like, dude, that was just something that got sensationalized from people, and it's not a true story. And Daniel kept bringing that back, like, oh, but you thirsted for a Pakistani general. It was bad. It was embarrassing for Daniel. I think he got totally destroyed tonight.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Max, that her presentation was quite weak. She went second, and she seemed to kind of riff off what he said quite a bit. And I think you should have a prepared statement, like we've said many times. I did think that was a weakness of hers. And yeah, his reference to this, her, making a comment about a good-looking guy at some point. I mean, so if you have big social media following and you posted many times, of course you're going to find somebody saying someone is attractive or whatever. I know that one got to be famous or whatever because he was a high-profile person, but I couldn't quite figure out why he found that so important.
Yeah, it was uncharacteristic for Daniel. I don't know if he was flustered that he had just a woman confronting him and he's not used to that, or sorry, or that his arguments for this position are just pure trash, because she handled him like really, really well. Let me read a couple of messages. Oh, yes. Daniel said that there should be lashings for fornication in 2025. Holy cat. Yes. Daniel seems to think, your Victoria said, Daniel seems to think evidence of sexism in society is proof that is needed. Yeah, that was a weird, that he made many fallacious arguments of this type, saying that because this is the way things have always been, this is the way they should be. That's just fallacious in so many ways. It's ridiculous. David says, Daniel loves to repeat how men are better at this and that, but then when she said women are better at this or that, he just said, so what? Like, bro, it was your argument. And then finally, David says, she had great points, but her delivery wasn't all that. Yeah, she needs to work in controlling her emotion while debating a little.
I think it is hard in these types of conversations because you're dealing with something that's so personal. And I think probably for women being in these situations where you're talking to men who are they're not really charitable to women, it can be, I think it can be very painful. And I think that's why they're standing up, but it's also, there's like a backlash to that. Like it's a double, it's a double-sided sword.
Yeah, in a debate, it's not. I don't think it's like wrong that you show how your emotions, because they're part of us all the time. But I think the focus should be on making either an intellectual or a moral argument rather than an emotional one, because we always have the appeal to emotion fallacy, which I don't necessarily agree with. You can't completely split them up, but I think that being said, I think she improved. I think she was like way more emotional, and she got like actually triggered on her last debate. I think today she's getting better, still has some work to do, but in general today she did way better than I expected.
Yeah, I think she's going to improve. I think that she'll get better at just, kind of the quippy, sharp, on your feet stuff, kind of thing. And a couple ways she could go if she keeps debating is she going to do a bunch of research and be more encyclopedic like an MC Toon who just knows the research or search, or some people, the more they debate, the more cocky they get and they prepare less and less. It seems like, you can go either way for people that are experienced, but I think she could, I expect she would just get better and better if she keeps doing it.
Definitely. And she's strong. She's a tough woman. And that Daniel gets so triggered by that, and it's so funny. I loved it. I loved it. This debate was hilarious. Welcome, John, with camera and everything. We have the house set up properly
How
tonight.
is everybody?
Doing great. How are you?
Hey, John, since you're here, it's a good time for me. I'm 25 minutes past what I said I was going to do tonight to myself before it started, but things went so late, so I'm going to jump off. Good to see you guys, and we'll be talking to y'all later.
Good night.
Yeah, no, it's super late or early.
Let me relocate you here to my side. There we go. All right. John, how you doing? And give us some initial thoughts on the debate.
Yeah, you're gonna have to forgive me. You might get a sneeze or two. The hay fever is absolutely kicking my ass at the moment. I've dosed up the eyeballs with the antihistamines. So, yeah, I was sort of listening to it while I was trying to get to sleep last night. So I was sort of occasionally jolted out of drifting off to sleep by him calling her a whore at the same time as extolling the virtues of getting 72 virgins in the afterlife. I'm like, hang on a minute. Yeah, I have to say I didn't think either side did particularly well. It's yeah, it seems self-evident that our society and how we protect everybody, not just women, does rely on the inherent force that the male side of our species bring to the table. But it is also the case that the thing that we're protecting women from in most circumstances as honorable men are the dishonorable men. So it's also the men that bring the vast majority of the danger as well. It took on this sort of feminist versus the religious, the Muslim attitude, which I know the debate, it was inevitably going to be like that because of the two people that were debating. Yeah, just a bit disappointing, to be honest with you. Again, and like I said, I didn't catch all of it. And I agree with Dr. J. She really did need to have sort of like a more formal opening planned. The fact that she didn't, and she did decide. I really don't like it if you're going to have like this pseudo formal debate structure. Then the person who goes second shouldn't really be addressing the first person's opening, because then A, you don't really give them a formal argument to argue against, and B, you get two goes at the rebuttal.
Yeah.
When the other person only gets one. That's just really bad form as far as I'm concerned.
We generally agree on that. Yeah, we typically say, okay, you might take a fraction of the time if you want to address something that they particularly said to you in your opening, but generally make your opening, prepare your opening, give your opening, and then go into rebutting.
Where I would give ground on that is if somebody else's opening, if part of their opening forms a direct attack against you, a direct quote from you, or is rather than if they're attacking their opponent as opposed to making an argument. The openings are where you make your argument. So I would also say the person who goes first, who makes their opening statement, if you expect the other person to make an opening statement as well, then don't attack them in the opening statement, either by ad hom or reputation destruction or something like that. But also you need to be aware that if, let's say for argument's sake, you quote from one of their papers directly, it's not really unfair for them not to reference their own paper in their opening as well. So there is a bit of a grey there, I'll grant you.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing that Daniel did a lot today is that she said, I do have an OnlyFans, and on OnlyFans, I talk about Islam, like uncensored. And Daniel completely ignored every time that she told them that, and basically treated her like, oh, yeah, but you're a prostitute on OnlyFans, which, I mean, I don't have a problem with, but she doesn't do OnlyFans for that. She uses OnlyFans for another thing. There was a grandmother that used OnlyFans to teach knitting, and she became famous. And she wasn't naked. She wasn't a prostitute. She just used it as a subscription service to sell tutorials on how to knit, right? So, I mean, you can use OnlyFans
you
for
just
it.
give me You just give me a horrific image there. Somebody's like 87-year-old grandmother who actually accidentally crochets her nipples into a sweater that she's knitting or something. I think that just.
But yeah, I mean, you can do a lot of things. It's not just for porn. I don't know why Daniel either refused to acknowledge what was happening, or
I mean, obviously, in this case, yeah, he probably should have acknowledged that rather than just insulting her repeatedly. But it is also the case he may have missed. I mean, it is also the case that if some woman says, "Oh yeah, I've got an OnlyFans," 95% of the time, you know what they're doing on it. If you made the guess that they're getting naked and
no, I understand that. But as soon as it got brought up, she said, yes, I have an OnlyFans where I talk about Islam uncensored. I teach about Islam uncensored, because she's been blocked on YouTube, on other platforms, from talking about that. And she said it right away. She never hid it. She never denied it. But Daniel completely disregarded her explanation of what she did in OnlyFans, just latched on very heavily onto the OnlyFans part. And of course, had to go to some like the most outlandish examples. Like, for example, he was saying that because we accept stewardship or guardianship from parents to their kids, then it's okay for men to be guardians of women. It's like, dude, that doesn't follow. Children need to be brought up into the world. They need to be taught stuff. They need to be like kept warm and loved and fed and taught. Like,
well,
women already know all of that.
It entirely depends on the circumstance. So, for example, like I've got 2 children. I've got a wife. I'm significantly larger than my wife in terms of stature. I'm about 8 inches taller than her and weigh nearly twice as much. And we've got 2 dogs. And if they start going nuts in the middle of the night, which can happen quite frequently, it is expected that I'm the one that gets up and goes downstairs and investigates it. But I never get up and go downstairs and investigate it without waking my wife up first. Because my expectation is that if it is somebody breaking into the house, or if it is some nasty person who's there who means to do us harm, then the expectation is that she goes to the children and looks after the children while I try and deal with what is going on downstairs. Right. You can call it patriarchal, you can call it stereotypical gender roles. I don't give a shit. But there is no way on this earth that anybody would deem it reasonable that I would expect my wife to go downstairs, especially since I'm the one that's got the bloody combat training. That's just now obviously if the roles were reversed, and like I was the stature of destiny and he was married to an MMA fighter, like a female MMA fighter who slapped the shit out of 50% of the men that she comes across, then you could maybe be able to make the argument. But again, typically it's going to be the guy who's going to go downstairs. And what you were saying earlier about
I understand
men being,
that, but that doesn't mean
less risk averse.
The fact that you would do that doesn't really mean, it doesn't follow that because on average, most people would go down that route unprompted, and like people would just do that. It doesn't follow that after the fact that that happens, it would justify that women need the, what's the word? What's, hold on, I have it. I took a note somewhere. What is it? Wali, the wali of the house. It doesn't follow that, because in general, since men are more physically imposing than women, they would go down the but let's say if you're married to a
So
police
it's sort of like
officer,
the master of the house.
but no, master of the house in the sense of, yeah, I would put my life at risk so that if I was married, my women, my wife and child wouldn't have to go in danger. I would sacrifice myself for them. But if the roles were reversed, and like you said, if the lady was the one that had like either military training or police training, or she was a fighter of some kind, of that kind of thing, it would make sense. Like, why would you go when she's the one that has the capability? But what I was trying to point out is that Daniel made that argument, but it doesn't follow that because on that situation that would happen, that we can then extrapolate the authority of men, the authority of men over women. Sorry, I blanked.
Well,
So, do you mind if I chip in something here?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, of course.
So I was watching the opening while you guys were talking. I was like, let me watch the opening so I can get the content. I sometimes do that if I miss some of the information. So I was reviewing it, and so it was interesting looking at Danny Boy's opening. He had Giga Chad Muslim. I thought that was really funny.
Yes, that was hilarious. Yeah,
With the goofy on, and I thought that was really cute. He kept talking about the wali. It's a guardian, and I think it is interesting because he's talking about this very ancient custom of guardianship, and it does exist in Judaism, which is true. I don't know about Hinduism, Buddhism, and Christianity. Christianity as a religion, as a person who doesn't come from I don't have any Christian family, so I come studying Christianity as an outsider, but somewhat of an insider because I'm also Jewish, so it kind of gives me an insight into Christianity that a lot of people who are born into Christianity don't have. So when I look into it, I see a tradition that's an ascetic religion. It's not even a religion that promotes marriage. It's a pro-celibacy religion overall. And it's very interesting. A lot of people are like, oh, it's pro-family. I'm like, it's not. I've read the entire text. It's not a pro-family text. None of the protagonists are people who marry. It's funny, I brought this up in my conversation with Tyler, and he was like, oh, you're risky. I'm like, I'm not. I'm just reading the text and I'm looking at the Jewish culture this is an ascetic Jewish culture that exists in the text. It is not a postmodern European culture. And I think people have projected this European culture onto an ancient ascetic Jewish culture. So it's weird to hear Christianity promoting guardianship of women. It doesn't really have that. It's a lot more complex. It's a lot more nuanced. I don't even think the Christian communities of the time thought they would be in the 21st century, the 20th century, 21st century. I don't think that they were thinking that was happening. I think they believed that Jesus was going to come back much sooner. That's at least my understanding. Yeah. The culture and the history, that's the honest, earnest approach to it. But he kind of went and said,
well, that's
huh?
Well, I was just going to say that's why Christianity is moderated so much, because they've had to modernize with the world as they've been kicking the can down the road, waiting for the return of their Messiah. That frankly I don't think is going to turn
any
up.
day now.
Any day now. Yeah.
Argument with the narrative has changed throughout time, but now you see all these family values, and I'm like, that's not what the text said. There was no anti-abortion family values. This stuff is all constructed. It's new constructions, and is pulling at threads to create these narratives, and it's kind of dishonest to the reading of the text, which I think is problematic. But the point was, I look at the conversation, and he was like, well, guardianship is so important, and I'm like, we're a very weak species. Sometimes we have this fantasy that we think we're this great powerful species. It's so amazing. We're not particularly strong. I mean, the reason why we're able to succeed is because we have the ability to create tools, and these tools help us. But like, if you
and
a
collaboration,
lion, it's going to
language
destroy it.
collaboration, yeah.
You know, and collaboration, exactly. We collaborate. We know how to build technology. This is the way that we succeed, right? But if we battle a tiger or a bear, we're going to be destroyed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, a normal human cannot, contend to like a lion, a tiger, or a bear. They're far more powerful than a human is. But we somehow think we're so brave, we're so strong. It's a part of our human fantasies. These are fantasies, and this idea that the man will protect. And I'm like, we're pretty weak creatures. I mean, we can try to do the best we can, but we're not. Like, when I watch this John Wick movie, I'm like, this is not how humans are. We're not that capable. If we take a couple blows, we're kind of finished, But the way that we stylize, and we're like, I'll take 20 blows and I'll keep going. That's not how it is. It's a fantasy.
I mean, I have to be honest. It does depend. I mean, for example, I've got some quite significant scarring on my shins from all the shin kicks and stuff that we used to do when we were training. So to be quite frank, I mean, I trained for 22 years. I quit in my late 20s. I'm in my early 40s now, and I've still got all the scarring on my shins from all the shin kicks and things. I've got no idea how capable I would be against somebody who's currently training the younger version of myself. Obviously, I've got a bit more life experience now. But the fact of the matter is, if you could put somebody who was much bigger than me trying to attack, if I kick them in the shins and they had no training, they're going down, and my shins will tolerate it. So there's obviously a significant difference. And in the same way as if I came across somebody who had the same sort of level of training who I had, who was still training now, they would completely demolish me, whether I was bigger than them or not. That's the whole function of, martial arts. I mean, I did Tang Sudo and Jiu-Jitsu. Tang Sudo is like what Taekwondo is based on. So one's sort of a grappling, and one is striking. You sort of need those two combinations for competent self-defense. So
John, Max says
very good. It's like that old what was that film that the joke was in? It was great. It's like, I believe being frank and earnest with women. In Minnesota I'm frank, and in New York I'm earnest. But I think the guardianship question here is like, it's very contextual in that, the vast majority of soldiers in our society are men. The vast majority of the police officers in our society are men. The vast majority of the firefighters in our societies are men. Where physicality is involved, it does tend to be men. And that's not to say that women can't do it. I, for one, absolutely. I mean, I'm one of those people who is of the opinion that if you can pass the minimum test required to do the job, and you don't lower that standard for one sex, gender, whatever, because that's you've determined that a minimum standard is required to do the job, and that should be the only thing that really matters, especially in those areas where you are expected to put yourself in significant danger in an attempt to save or look after other people. One of the areas where I actually give ground on that, and I would say no matter what the physical standard is, we actually do need female representation, is within the police. And one of the big parts of that is because of the necessity for the police to arrest women and do things like intimate searches. I don't care what a woman has done. If a female says, I do not consent to being intimately searched by a male, that's not fucking happening. And if you don't have a female police officer available, you need to get like a female nurse in to do it or something like that. I'm not going to have government-sponsored sexual assault. But the point is, like, now if guardianship is this sort of ancient patriarchal, you can't leave the house without a man, you need to cover yourself up, etc., that kind of guardianship is dog shit. It's no longer necessary in our society. Frankly, the society, we've now brought these ancient standards from a really sort of, like, you've got barbarian hordes raping their way across the continent, and do you know what I mean? We don't live in that world anymore. We live in a much more civilized world anymore. And frankly, the chances of young women walking around the streets in the daytime being assaulted is incredibly low. I don't know. We don't have the data to know how common that would have been in sort of like the 11th century, for example. I assume it would probably have been more common, but humans are mostly the same. We've sort of, our civilization has civilized us, for want of a better word.
Right. The problem was that Daniel was making some of the argument of some of the things that you just mentioned, why there are more men as police officers, etc., etc. Daniel was basically saying that because that happens, then we need to go down the route of this other type of guardianship where women wear the sad mailbox costumes and they're not allowed to even speak with like other males. It's to me, it reeks of weakness. It reeks of like desperation for control.
Yeah.
But probably because I was brought up in the fact that at any time, if you're with someone, at any time, if you don't feel like that's going anywhere, or if you don't feel comfortable, you have full rights to just go away and get out of that relationship. And I've gone away of relationships. I've been the one that has been left there, and she ended it. Well, because it's a thing that it's of two people. You can't have a relationship with one person, and Daniel doesn't seem to understand that. Probably a cultural thing or something. But before we continue, I have
it's probably a proprietorial thing.
Yes, I think so.
When you view your partner as property rather than an actual collaborative partner, then that is going to be the default position that you end up in.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and
there's also the honor society around it as well.
There was also some other kind of quite fallacious reasoning. But today we don't have dumbest comments. There's a whole mixed bag of comments that I saved from the debate today, and I'll read them to you. Isa, you focus on driving. I'll read them. Mouse said, "Why isn't this called feminist versus incel debate?" That was really funny. TBS next.
Is Daniel married?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
they both went to Harvard.
Yeah. TBS next. Daniel isn't a Muslim. He's a heretic. C.H. Kane. We're not just physically better than women. We're smarter too and better looking. Men are sexier. I want to feel them. Is how his argument sounds to me. Freebird. Daniel is defining everything about his mother, not females of the world. I have a screenshot here of I love this slide. I did miss the Giga Chad Muslim. That was hilarious. But yeah, young women squandering their most valuable asset. The most valuable assets of people is that they're people, not I mean, some people are blessed with being good looking, some people are smart, some people are both, some people are neither. It's a lottery. Yes, sorry.
With no, it's fine. It's with OnlyFans. I would say that I do think there is a OnlyFans is risky. It's a risky game to be playing.
Mm-hmm.
In the society in which we live, you know, we're going to need like a much more significant attitude change towards pornography and prostitution in order for us to reduce the risk of reputation and societal damage. And it's one thing for young women to go, well, this is my right. I should be free to do this, etc., etc., etc. But that doesn't mean that they're not taking on a risk with, for example, if the OnlyFans isn't successful, if it doesn't take off, with potential future employment. They could be significantly limiting themselves. And I'm not even making a moral argument here. But you can fall on one side of that moral coin or the other. But the consequential facts of the matter are that if you engage in that kind of behavior online and you don't generate the revenue that you think you're going to generate, then that content is likely going to be searchable by potential future employers, future husbands.
Right, but
and
if you think about it, this thing that we do here, if we ever, I've had the same job for many years now, and I don't think it will affect me negatively. But take a look at, you know, YouTube flat earthers. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do which are kind of innocuous that can also lead to the same result. So it's not really an OnlyFans thing.
Yeah, just having a media.
I think
blamed for it.
Oops, sorry, go on, Ethan. Yeah. No, I think.
Oh. It's a
sorry,
delay.
Isa, go on.
Oh, Isa.
Yeah, apologies.
No, it's okay.
No problem. It's my hotspot. When I get home, I'll have better internet. But the thing that I was going to say quickly is that we have a media digital footprint, and our digital footprint is going to affect us. And I think that's what Max is saying. And I think it's important. It could be OnlyFans. It could be a YouTube video. People are going to take, like, for example, this happened to me. I was representing Islam, but I'm very involved in the Jewish community. So what did they do on the channel? They researched me and they saw, oh, he's really involved in the Jewish community. How can he talk about Islam when he's involved with the Jewish community? And, he represents himself as being Jewish. And I'm like, well, things are more complex and more nuanced, It doesn't have to be that way. But they saw these things and they tried to discredit me based on that. And I was like, I don't think that's, a lot of these people don't know anything about Judaism anyway. So, I mean, that's
right.
their fault.
Oh, I love that you bring,
I'm definitely one of them.
I love that you brought that up because you know who makes a cameo on this section? Our little friend, Sir Buggy Goy Burger. He made a bunch of really dumb comments, and I took a couple of them. Anything you would like to say, John, before we move on to the next couple of comments?
Yeah, it's fine. Just with regards to the only, yes, of course, we're all going to have a digital footprint, and I'm fairly well insulated in that I'm married. I already have children. My wife and I, we don't completely politically align. She does have a horrible habit of voting either Labour or Liberal Democrats because she's convinced they do have a magic money tree. But in terms of our core values, like family values, etc., they all line up. And also, I'm self-employed. I run my own business. Like, nobody can fire me. So I can basically go online and say what I want.
Yeah. Me too.
So but there are, I think if, for example, like an employer found out that one of their employees was a fervent flat earther, and let's say they worked in like a physics department or something, right. I think they would just, as long as they were competently doing their job and they left the flat earth at home, I think they would just sort of shrug, consider it a bit of a quirk. However, if they found out that one of their physicists, who is constantly and repeatedly cited in scientific papers, for example, and was somehow representative of an institution like Harvard or whatever the case may be, and they had an OnlyFans, because of the way the OnlyFans is viewed in our society, I think there is a legitimate potential sort of like risk of the reputation of the institution there that is different than if they were a flat earther. And that's not, again, I don't want to denigrate people that work in that industry. I do have my own moral considerations around it. I think OnlyFans is worse than just regular pornography, because I think it is, people are finding it's not worse from the perspective of the person who's producing the content, because they are the owners of their content, so they're less likely to be victimized or whatever by like a producer or essentially a digital pimp. But where I think it's worse is the impact that it has on our society, because we are having people who are getting into serious relationships later in life. They're struggling to get into relationships at all. The number of young men that are still either virgins or haven't had a serious relationship by the time they're well into their 20s. And the fact that they can get these surrogate online relationships on OnlyFans, where they're having their emotional support, a lot of their emotional needs dealt with, I think is making that problem worse. And it's much, much worse than just having a video of somebody who you think is hot online, because you're getting the social interaction with them as well. I don't think it's good for our society, and I think it's much worse than just the regular Pornhub, you know.
That's the first time I've heard. We could talk about because I think it's better. It's way better, mostly because there's way less exploitation. Yeah,
and I mean, and to engage that point too, brother. I think the problem with that situation is they might engage only there's a root cause problem. OnlyFans isn't the problem. The problem is that these people, we're in a society where there's less and less connection, and everything is digital. So OnlyFans will solve the issue that these people are having, but it's not really what's the cause of their issue, the cause of their social malaise. These people have a lot of problems from the get-go. It's not OnlyFans that's causing their problems. You know what I mean? That's what I think.
Yeah, that's what I think. But let's continue with this.
I do generally think, though, if we've identified a problem, we should stop digging. But still.
Yeah, but I don't think the problem is with the OnlyFans. I think the problem is with this parasocial bond. And also, women can choose more. So you have to put in a bit more effort to be better. So that's kind of like... It's a complicated, but we can talk about that a little bit later. Adam, this guy was super triggered during the whole debate and yelled here, like, Daniel, silence, you're fat and weak. Daniel, your power is white man education. Silence, you weak fat man. This guy was like literally spazzing out the whole debate. It was hilarious. Icy Spicy. Islam revolves around earning jahannah to have unlimited houris, yet Islam does not serialize women. Another Daniel joke. Here we have our friend Isa Sir Buggy now has an account that goes by LARPing for Cash. Sounds like you wish you were born with a penis. And I'm sorry to the people in the audience, this guy is whack, but he's funny. LARPing for Cash, God made you weak. He was talking to her. Joshua Jamie had a really good comment. Daniel said 1 minute ago that women put too much value onto their looks, and now he's comparing women's looks to $1 million. Cloak, she is proof that women should be subservient to men. What a lovely guy. Has a picture of Calvin Candy from the Django movie and made a bunch of comments like this. LARPing for Cash, what a nasty woman. Clock, she's taking the shortcut with OnlyFans, and it's only indicative of her character, willing to sell herself for the easy way out. Dude, she doesn't do nudity in OnlyFans. She just talks about Islam because she can do that uncensored. You doofus. And if you want to go down that route, right now, Isa, John, and all three of us are selling ourselves for views.
That's what I was going to say. I think everybody's selling themselves in some capacity.
Right?
It's such a ridiculous notion that they see. They're very limited and myopic in their worldview.
Like, seriously.
I mean, in fairness, I'm here for the discussion because you would make an awful pimp, Max. You've never sent any money my way.
No,
like nothing, not to do my hair, my nails, nothing. Like, I mean, what is wrong with you?
LARPing for Cash says, I'm glad I avoided women like this. It's like, women are glad that you avoided them, dude. It's not it's the other way around. Clock. Loose sandwich baggy old hag. You are literally a 4 and worth nothing. And let me remind you, he's calling someone who was Miss Pakistan, he's calling her a 4. Like, seriously, dude, you can't deny that she's really pretty. You might not be specifically attracted to her Middle Eastern archetype, right? But you can't say that she's an ugly woman. She looks great. Like, seriously.
You can acknowledge if you refuse to acknowledge a beautiful aesthetic just because the person is taking corollary position to you, or you don't like what they're saying. That's just being vindictive, you know.
Right.
And again, like you say, I mean, I can like, oh, who was the? Oh, I forget the actress's name. She's an Asian actress. She played Koothrappali's sister in The Big Bang Theory.
Yes, I know her.
Absolute, not my type at all. But absolutely beautiful. She's gorgeous.
She's in Suits too.
I can agree.
Yeah.
Also.
Yes, gorgeous, and also she has a British accent. Sorry. LARPing for cash. The inventors are all men. Bullshit. We are all using the internet because a lady developed the TCP/IP protocol. So shut your fucking hole. And warriors are men. Every time there has been an army of women, they are savage and vicious. You might want to do a little bit of Googling before you just spaz out in chat. All of generals in any war and history are men unless it's a gay new army. Holy fuck. This guy is so dumb. I can't wait till he finds us so I get to ban him again. You don't have a sack of balls and God can't give you one. Are you saying that God has, there's a power that God doesn't have? No, you're not. Boom shakalaka, this lady is demonic.
What's demonic about her? There's nothing.
I have no idea.
I mean, these people are crazy. They're lunatics.
It's wild.
They're lunatics. It's crazy. Yes. People are saying, and it's like they're so hostile, and they're like, oh, because they're not saying what I want them to say, I'm gonna just say nasty things about them. It's ridiculous, you know. It's crazy.
Yes. Because they tried, like Daniel tried insulting her, and she's like a tough woman, and she wouldn't go for it. So he was desperate to try, and she wasn't having any of it, and that made him stumble. I was saying, I don't know if I said it yet, but I think I said the joke, or no. I'll say it anyway. If my mom,
I'll say it again.
If my mom ever met Daniel Hakikachu and he's told her that she needs to submit to her husband, my mother, she's like 65, would bend Daniel over her knee and just spank him with the chancleta. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, my mother would spank Daniel and tell him that he's a fucking idiot. I know that for sure. In Uruguay, Daniel would still be an incel. He would not be able to get anyone, because women here are strong. Like, women here will tell you to shut the fuck up.
You know how you get all these sort of like it was like all the politicians that are in sort of positions of power and etc. And you'd think that they'd be sort of like in the bedroom, they'd be more like the dominant one, but then it turns out they've all got kinks of submission, and they need the ball gag and the gimp mask and the the pretty lady to be flogging them with the cat and nine tails. Do you think that's the same with Daniel as well? Like, if your mother bent him over his knee and you said he's a very naughty boy, he might get a kick out of it.
Yes, 100%. And if he could find a woman that would just like grab him by the balls and choke him and make him her bitch, Daniel would 100% go for that. I have no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. He likes to get slapped around and that kind of a thing, which I don't kink shame. I had a girlfriend that liked to be choked. It was a bit weird because I wasn't used to it, but like, will you choke me? It's like, okay, tell me how. And
I had an ex who was into all sorts of stuff. She's like, without going into too much detail, it was similar. And honestly, it made me feel a little bit uncomfortable because I'm like, this feels like I could be hurting you here.
It is a bit when you're not that kind of man that is seeking control. It was hard to me to adjust my brain that it's like, okay, I'm not hurting you, you're not doing anything wrong. She asked you for that. It is hard to change that mindset. But then after a while, I got a little bit used to it, and I don't know why we're talking about this.
Yeah, I know. It goes weird. But
I'm going to get
yeah.
juice. 1 second.
No worries. Issa, what do you make of the sort of like the distinction between the protective instinct that I think most men have towards women in the Western world compared to the protective instinct over the possessive instinct that seems to be prevalent in some of the Muslim cultures where they insist that women have to cover up. They're sort of exporting the responsibility of self-control of the men onto the women at the same time as also sort of like saying, no, that's my woman, only I'm allowed to look at her at all. Like what do you think is I mean, is that purely a religious dynamic? Is there something, is it cultural? Is it like, what on earth's going on there? Because I think both cultures have the same protective instinct of men wanting to protect and look after not just women but vulnerable people as well, like their children, anybody who they care about, they're going to want to protect. But that seems to manifest itself differently, very differently.
Well, so
I'm just wondering what you make of that. Of all of us, you would probably have the better insight on that.
So what I think is we have to see. This is something I always bring up, and I think it's an important thing to consider. It's not really like the West versus the East. We're talking about we have to look at the impacts of colonialism and imperialism. Yeah. They may have left impacts on these countries. These countries weren't always like that. A lot of these countries are very much damaged from imperialism and colonialism. So they have a lot of destabilization. A lot of their governments aren't functional. Because you have a lot of corrupt figures. Some of them are puppet figures that fit in. So this creates instability all across the space. So what do people usually lean into? They lean into religion. So religion gives comfort. Religion gives order. Religion gives support. It gives these things. So, for example, we can take a country like Palestine. Palestine used to be predominantly a Sufi country, right? It was country, I'm not going to use that word exactly, country, but let's say province, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of contention on that.
Yeah, whatever term we want to use, because this is before, let's say, before the era of the nation states, because nation states are new. This is a new era that we're in. Mostly we were, before the age of the nation state, we were in the age of empire, right? So there were a lot of empires that controlled lots of territory. So the territory that is considered Palestine was primarily Sufi, but now it's very Salafi. Why is that? Because there's a lot of instability within that territory now. So things like Sufi mysticism, where people go to shrines and do these kind of, mystical practices, don't necessarily give the results of kind of having that order and finding order through strength. And a movement like Salafism does provide that. This kind of ultra literalism provides that. So to kind of make a long story short, the idea of why a lot of these folks are going into these spaces is because of a lot of economic instability, just lots of areas of lacking stability. And they try to say, well, we need to have order, and this is the best way. We need to have clear guided order in spaces, and it doesn't work. Quick and easy solutions never work. You have to have more nuanced and layered approaches to everything. The so-called Western approach has a myriad of problems too, because a lot of the problems that you see in our so-called modern Western cultures, a lot of it's swept under the rug. There's equal domestic abuse. There's so much domestic abuse, we just don't know about it. And domestic abuse is done differently. So there's the same kind of problems that are done in different ways. And we have to understand this, like exploitation and all these kinds of problems. But with these kind of men, I think I agree with Max. It's massive insecurity. These people are insecure. People who are violent and abusive are insecure people. That's the reason why they're doing what they do. They do it because they don't have any self-worth or self-value. So they have to lash out on other people, particularly women, because their societies have allowed for this kind of hierarchical structure, which is very flawed. So that's what I would say.
Right. Let me read a couple of messages. Elia B, pray for Daniel's wife and women's daughter. The Muslim man wants to legalize domestic abuse, beat his wife. Another debater is okay pimping out her daughter through OnlyFans. That was a weird interaction, yes. From what I gather, Daniel did, and I was talking with Sumi at the time, and Daniel used an expression. Hold on, I have it here. One sec. What was it? 1 second, please. He was talking about violence, right? And he used a word to kind of disguise physical coercion. He said that a husband has the right to use physical coercion or to withhold money from the wife. And in my experience, in the cases where there is a couple with such power imbalance that one doesn't have anything and the other has everything, it ends up being very violent. It ends up going inevitably towards physical violence. So it's a very nasty thing to say, oh yeah, husbands should be able to use physical coercion. And it is justified under the Quran because there are verses that they cite in which you're allowed to tap them with a rod or something like that, which is like abhorrent.
Well, this is if we're doing a literalistic reading of these texts. I mean, the thing is, there's like mystical approaches that one could take towards these texts. And there's also, progressive looks and approaches. Like if you read the Tanakh, it's not very different. If a woman disobeys, you know what I mean? It's very similar kind of stuff. So I think communities have a right to reinterpret their texts and re-understand their texts. And if people are taking hyper-literalistic approaches, well, then for the Muslim, if you're going to take a Salafi approach, then you have to believe that the Torah and the Injil, the Zabur and the Injil, so the Torah, the Psalms, and the New Testament are all valid, true texts. If you take that approach, you must take the other approach. You can't, do that. So I'm like, well, you got to believe that, Jesus is the Son of God, literally, if that's what you want to do. So
but they don't like that. They don't like that one bit.
Because they're grifting. They're grifting. That's the problem. They're not actually consistent in their approach. They're like, we want to be literalistic. And I'm like, okay, well, then you got to say Jesus is the Son of God. Do you want to do that? No. Okay. Khalas. You're finished. Your position.
With the domestic abuse thing, it's the dynamic has definitely shifted. I mean, domestic abuse of old was just savage beatings, and then our understanding of domestic abuse has changed with sort of like coercive behavior, gaslighting, but the other thing as well is there's cultural things that have changed that weren't necessarily tied to sort of religion. So, for example, when you say about like one party in a relationship having all of the financial asset. So, for example, my grandparents on my dad's side, my grandfather was a tinsmith, and he was the one that was bringing the wage into the household. And then when he would get paid at the end of the week or the end of the month, he would hand almost all of the money to his wife. And then she managed essentially the household, managed the funds. And then at the end of the week, if there was any money left over, that got given back to my granddad. And then he could go to the pub and have a few beers with his mates with what was left over. What I mean is that's a very different dynamic relationship. Even though he technically had all the financial control, there was nothing to say that he had to give that money to him. That was sort of like the mutual respect in their relationship that they had. She was looking after the house. She needed the resources to do it. He was the one that was accruing the resources. And if he generated enough resources that there was sufficient left at the end of the week for him to go and have a bit of a jolly with it, then that's what he got to do.
Right.
That was sort of like... So, whereas if you're in the situation where, the housewife is having to go to the husband, begging her for money to buy clothes and food for the kids, that's obviously abusive relationship. But on paper, he's the one working and she's the one not. At a very surface level, they can look the same, when actually you need to do a bit more of an interrogation of what the dynamic is between the two people. And our modern world is just totally different, because like my wife works, I work. We both generate a not insignificant amount of funds from what we both have chosen to do, and we pay money into a joint account that covers all of the house costs. and then whatever we have left after that is essentially our own to do with as we please. But we're building an extension on the house at the moment, and I had my kitchen delivered yesterday. So, and I think that can't remember who. Yeah, that got paid for out of the joint account. So we had to put more money in the joint account in order to make it happen. Because I've got a business I can that works in construction. I can buy some stuff through my business and get it a bit cheaper and whatnot. But
right.
So how people divide up their responsibilities within relationships has completely changed. And like if the shit hit the fan with my wife and I, and it got to the stage where, like, if we did decide to split up and get divorced, would there be a financial concern there for both of us? Yes, because we're going to have to sell the house that we live in. We're both going to essentially have to downgrade, and but each of us are going to have to buy a smaller house that isn't in necessarily as nice of an area, and that would be a bit of a step back for us in terms of our living standards, and we wouldn't necessarily like to do it. If we stick together, we would have a better quality of life because we're joining our resources. But my wife is not in the position where if I was being an abusive cunt to her, she wouldn't not be able to leave because she can't afford it. She's got her own resources, so she's not trapped.
That is the biggest problem in this kind of arranged marriages where the woman doesn't work and she's just there for the children.
Exactly.
Because it inevitably comes, and we both have heard this in movies, and I've heard it in real life. You would be nothing without me. It's like, dude, you having her in that position is what it's what got her there. It's like, it's not her fault. And that is one of the nastiest things I've ever heard a human being tell another human being, and I've witnessed it myself. Like, you would be literally nothing without me, and I was just like.
Well, you know, one thing that I would say to that, it's a place of privilege. These people are talking from privilege. I'm like, how about if the world went to crap and our whole modern society didn't dysfunction? The reason why you're able to make money is because we're in a whole space of contracts and, doing barter and doing deals with other people. If that's ceased, you couldn't do anything. The people need humility. We're not powerful. And I'm going to reinforce the same argument I said before. We're a very weak species. We're very powerless. But in our own minds, we think we're so powerful and strong. I mean, if a small little disaster happens, we could be finished and completely destroyed. So I'm just like, it's better to have humility and say, you know what? Even if you don't believe in God, you don't believe in religion, you could just say, you know what? I'm grateful that I'm able to have whatever I have. It doesn't have to be grateful to God. You can just be, just happy and grateful, to nature or whatever.
I am like that.
Being. You get what I'm saying. It doesn't.
I am like that. I'm thankful that I have a great life. That I do whatever I want, whenever I want. No one tells me anything. Yeah. I get to have fun at my job. I get to have fun here with a bunch of people. I can't complain, and I am grateful. I'm not grateful to anything in particular. I'm just thankful that I got a super lucky break in
you understand
my life.
What I mean? So that's
yeah,
great.
exactly. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
But like, and what you were saying with when like people say, "Oh, you'd be nothing without me," and that's sort of like a malicious and vindictive.
Oh my God, I almost died when I heard
comment
that. Yeah.
to lay at a person's feet. But for me, my attitude is the opposite. Like, for example, like my business is doing well, but the only reason that I have it at all in the first place is because my wife works for the NHS. She has a good, solid, stable income that, frankly, we can run our home on. It wouldn't be comfortable. We'd have to batten down the hatches a bit, but we could run our home, feed our family, and pay our bills with just her salary alone. And because we knew that going in, that enabled me. I was made redundant from a private medical company that I was working for. The NHS changed some contracts around and my job evaporated overnight. So that was a bit of a gut punch, and I was looking around for something to do. And I could have just gone and applied for jobs and just got another job doing something else, and that would have been the safest, sensible thing to do. But because I knew that my wife and we were functioning as a team had this income, it allowed me to take a risk and go and see, hey, maybe if I start my own business, will this work? And it allowed me to take a risk. And for the first year to 18 months, my wife was carrying the financial bag. Even if in the next, however, you don't know what's going to happen in the future, but for me to turn around and say to my wife, like, you'd be nothing without me. If anything, it's the other way around, because the reason
Well, but it's a different situation.
I have the success.
It only happens in the case where, let's say, the man works and the woman she's just a homemaker. That's when those things kind of happens. But it also can happen the other way. If the woman is the breadwinner and the father is a stay-at-home dad, then she could say, like, you'll be nothing without me because you don't work. It's an abusive relationship. In your case, you're more of a team, and your wife kind of probably saw, okay, he has an idea for a business. I think I want him to be happy. I want him to follow his dreams and that kind of stuff. It's a very different paradigm that you have than what Daniel would have. Max said Daniel wouldn't last a second in South America. I can imagine him getting to meet, La Sonia, and Daniel just saying, like, you woman, go to the kitchen, and La Sonia just telling him, like, pero cállate, gordo puto, and stuff like that. I can't repeat what I just said in English. I said something very bad, but funny. So yes, I agree. I fully agree, Max, that Daniel speaks out of the comfort of his Texas life in America and saying, "Oh yeah, we Sharia is the best," while he doesn't live in a Sharia country. J Cat, the Catstronaut, says sexism makes me more angry than flat Earth. I agree. Or
objectively, it does more harm.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. David says he also showed how ridiculous he is when he responded to the child marriage thing. He said, "And you want this guy who is way older than you?" Yes, Daniels. The keywords there are "you want." And also, when it comes to age difference in couples, the older you get, the age difference starts to be meaningless until it kind of reverts back. If you're 80 and you're with someone who is 20, that is creepy as fuck. But if you're 40 and you're with someone that is 50, that's not that weird. If you're 50 and you're with someone that is 70, that's not that weird. And then it flips back. It starts like, okay, it's creepy for someone who is 25 to be, or 30 with someone who's 18. It starts getting less and less creepy, and the distance can get a little bit larger, and then it just kind of springs back.
Well, yeah, because like if you're like I'm 41 and my wife's 38. If we met when we were 15 and 18, that would have been creepy as fuck. Yeah. No, but now it means nothing. We're basically people view us. Oh yeah, people just shrug and go, "Oh, you're same age,"
Pretty much.
But if she was 14 and I was 17, or she was 15 and I was 18, that would have been, when we met, that would have been a really creepy relationship.
Right. I had about a 7-year difference, and sometimes I would kind of recall, like, okay, I was 15, I was going to the clubs, I was smoking weed, and going out, and you were still in primary school. That is so weird. And she was like, don't think about that. That is creepy as fuck. But we met, I was like 26 and she was 19, something like that.
On the odd occasion that I go out into the bars and clubs these days, I do have to be careful with the bars and clubs that I pick. I try to go for the ones that are a bit more of an adult crowd, because there's one club in town where I know some of the door staff. I used to know the owners, but they're different owners now. So if I wanted to get in, I probably could get in, but I'd basically be surrounded by all these little fetuses.
Yes.
There's like 18, 19-year-old kids, and there's me there, like, it would be totally weird.
It happens to me the last couple of times that I DJ'd. I felt like, dude, I'm a mister here now. Like, I'm a mister, and these are all still teenagers. and it's
Do
wild.
you know what? Do you know what really? Do you know what really creeps me out? It's when occasionally you do get hit on by like the 18-year-old girl who is wearing so little clothes that you can see what she had for lunch. And it's because she can
Right.
see you dressed, you've got some nice clothes on, you know, maybe a nice watch. You know, she can see you've got some potentially got some resources. She doesn't really, you know, and as long as you don't look like, you know, some sort of weird bridge hermit, she's like, oh, he would be an acceptable sugar daddy. Let's let's try. I mean, that creeps me the fuck out. It is
Yes.
terrifying. I'm like, I
Ugh.
like, don't get me wrong, like obviously beautiful young women. I am hardwired to but I look at it, I'm like, Jesus, like I have a 9-year-old daughter. You're not that much older than her. You know, I'm like, no thanks. Also, my wife wouldn't be very happy about it if I brought her home as well. I suppose I should. She might have something to say, but it's just weird. Like this sort of it's like hypergamy on steroids when that happens.
It's weird. Like I don't. For example, we're talking about imbalances in relationships. The sugar, whether it's sugar,
yeah, or maybe they've
baby
just got
or
like an
sugar
older man
mama,
fetish or something. I don't know.
I understand that, but if it's purely based on the fact that you want someone, it's basically like living, like you would have a live-in maid. It's basically a live-in prostitution. It's not a relationship. It's a transaction.
No.
I don't. It's imbalance. I don't advocate for that one bit.
You also get because again, like rent and accommodation is so expensive. We're starting to see adverts appear on things like Gumtree and like some of the. There was a picture somebody posted on Facebook. It was in France, not in the UK, but they do have a similar housing price issue, where people are putting adverts up where it's like free room and board for services rendered twice weekly.
Oh my.
Yeah, basically, I can put you up in a room in my house if you let me fuck you twice a week. And then it's got like a criteria, like a dating profile criteria underneath it. You know.
Oh, that is.
Yeah, it's really.
I am a self-admitted degenerate, like, and that is so. Like, what? No, don't do that.
But
I mean,
you know,
if you want, yes, but it's a transactional thing. People are adults, but it's like, dude, that is.
Think about it. But when you think about it, if you're going to have to, let's say, for argument's sake, shell out $2,000 a month for rent and bills for a shitty flat, and actually for £250 a fuck, you can end up in like a nice, like 4-bedroom house in suburbia somewhere with a garden and a hot tub or something. Like there are a lot of young women in the current sort of transactional society around sex that we live in that would consider that a good deal.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, it's to a lesser amount. There are there are sugar daddies and sugar mamas also, so it's not an exclusively.
No, I would say it's much more common in one direction than the other.
It's much more common, yes, but it's with the rise of feminism and women in charge and that kind of thing, it's becoming more of a thing that actually happens.
Well, to be honest, but I think that's probably a big issue with the hypergamy, not problem as such, because I don't see it as a problem, but I think that is an issue, like because typically women do want to date across and up, and men don't really give a shit. They date across, but they're not really bothered. With the exception of the low T insecure guys who don't want to date across and up, they prefer to date across and down because it puts them in a higher power position, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I don't much care across and up or down. I don't. It's about the person, not about the resources that they bring to the table. But that does mean that as women have started to dominate the educational institutions and the sort of the professional industries, it does mean that there are far less across and up men for them to date into. The dating pool has become much smaller from them when you look at it from the perspective of hypergamy, because frankly, the men just aren't keeping up with them in education. Men, for the most part, are being left behind.
Yeah, Daniel was talking about high value man, and I would like to think like, what is a high value? Because to me, I know what a high value man is: a man that is caring, a man that would never raise his hand to his family, to his wife, to anyone really. A man that's not violent, a man that's comprehensive, that makes a hard effort, that's
A
passionate.
Renaissance man.
Right.
Yeah.
A man like my dad, I would say. You know, that's the example that I go by. He wasn't perfect. He wasn't the best at a lot of things, but that's kind of the example of a man that I get. But I think when Daniel says a high value man, he means something completely different than what I would think.
Well, some people think a high value man is sort of, let's, as a placeholder, let's stick in like Andrew Tate. Some people think that's a high value man. Where
I think that's a low value man to me. That's like being the couple of a cartel leader.
Yeah,
might be powerful,
he's powerful, he's successful, but that doesn't, from the perspective of sort of society, that doesn't make you high value. And you are going to be attractive. You know, the type of woman who's going to be attracted to that type of man is the type of the 18, 19-year-old girl that intentionally hits on older guys in bars because of the resources they can provide, the sugar babies that are looking for a sugar daddy. But that's like a high value man, to my mind, wouldn't be interested in that. They're looking for a commensurate partner. So, for example, my wife has a nursing degree. I have a BSc, a Bachelor of Science. I'm an architectural technologist. So we both have sort of a commensurate, they're in completely different fields, but we both have sort of a commensurate level of education. We both wanted kids. We both wanted to live close to family. We weren't particularly interested in, we're in the notion of people that are somewheres, not anywheres. We were never going to move to like, Berlin or somewhere like that, a super cosmopolitan city. We like the culture around where we grew up. So, we consider, when we look at each other, we consider each other to be high value people. We consider each to one another. We consider each other to be, good looking, attractive. And as a result, we become force magnifiers for one another. Our life just gets better and better.
Yeah.
So,
because one is not dragging down the other, one is not having to,
or dragging up the other,
or dragging up, like it goes both ways. But yeah, I agree. When couples have kind of equal conditions in general, things go like way better. Andrew Christopherson, hey, Ben Franklin was onto something. He liked the older ladies. Me too. And Daniel was like, oh, no one's gonna like you. Like, dude, she's really pretty. Like, she's going to be pretty when she's 60 still. Like, Daniel, look at yourself. Daniel, you're a fucking disgust now. Yeah, you were never pretty and you will never be pretty. Daniel, just for fuck's sake, what is this argument?
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Islamic.
1 sec. Andrew Christopherson, regarded to the last message, but I also like stronger, confident, intelligent women. Ooh, that is a trifecta that it's. Oof. Isa, sorry. Yes, go ahead.
No, you're good. I just wanted to kind of engage the Islamic arguments because that's kind of a part of the debate too, was the Islamic elements.
Sorry.
Which is fine. So we kind of, the idea of Sharia. So this is going to be an interesting thing to discuss here, but a lot of these nation states that are calling themselves Islamic, they're not actually following the Sharia, not according to Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah Islamic law, or Sunni Islamic law. So there's a great Christian author. He's a Palestinian named Wael B. Halak. I recommend everyone read his book. It's called The Impossible State. It's a very academic text, but I don't quote my text, so I'm going to tell you, like, the the thematic element, and you'll see that it's consistent with it. Wael, I met him in person. I got him to sign my book, so he's a really pretty awesome dude. But he makes the argument in his text that the modern Muslim majority states are not Islamic states. He says the Islamic state is an impossible state. A nation state cannot be Islamic. And the arguments he makes for it is that the Islamic state exists under a caliphate, right? So you need a caliph that is kind of running the show.
Correct.
Like the Ottoman Empire would be that kind of space. And the Ottoman Empire overall was actually pretty good. A lot of people complain and say how terrible is. What they're complaining about is the last leg when the Ottoman Empire was collapsing. So basically the genocides we see, they're in the 1900s, right when it kind of starts collapsing. Before that, they were more dangerous to their own other rulers. Like if you were part of the elite family and you were you might have a vying for the power of sultan, your life might be in danger because people were vying for power. But besides that, it was not really, at least in the era of the Age of Empire, it wasn't really bad for its citizens to live under the Ottoman Empire. It was pretty much like what we would call what is that word? Libertarian, where people kind of ruled their own kind of junctions. It was kind of states' rights type of thing, like if you understand American law, like it's sort of like that. It was not really very intrusive. But this idea that people are they have this fantasy that Sharia is this idea that you're going to have this modern state that's just basically going to rule people's lives. That's never really how these Islamic empires operated. They didn't really micromanage. So a lot of this stuff is very modern. These are people imitating the modern European nation state. And they're not your modern European nation states. They're something different, and they're trying to imitate it, and they're failing in their imitation. And I think that this needs to be understood. My favorite place, it's funny because one of the correspondents comes from here, is Pakistan. I'm very well versed in Pakistan's history and its politics. Pakistan was not really the place that it was until recently. Basically,
when you say recently, do you mean like the 1950s, or do you mean
70s,
like 70s?
Yeah, 70s. So there was a dude named Aga Yahya Khan, and there was a guy named Muhammad Zeal Haq. And these guys, Aga Yahya Khan basically did the attack on East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. Very horrible. They were kind of pushing these very fanatical views of religion. And Muhammad Zeal Haq was another terrible leader. He was a dictator that basically he used religion in order to consolidate his power. The guy who actually he was a founder of Pakistan. His name is Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He's also known as Qadi Azam. He was actually secular. He was a secular Ismaili who smoked and drank and really was not very religious. He was not there's a movie about him with, guess what? One of your fellow folks, John, a very famous guy named Christopher Lee. He played Dracula. He was related to Charlemagne, and he was also played Muhammad Ali Jinnah. It's a very interesting movie to see Christopher Lee playing a Pakistani. But yes, Dracula, Count Dooku, is playing Muhammad Ali Jinnah too. I think that was one of his favorite roles, by the way. But
Christopher Lee was such a Chad.
Oh, he was amazing. He was also in James Bond. He's Scaramanga. They did him bad at James Bond, though. I was like, the way that they killed him off, I was like, this is terrible. This guy's a legendary assassin, and he dies in this terrible way.
This guy was stood on the set of The Hobbit, lecturing the director. Was it Peter Jackson, the director?
Yeah.
About how, about how would you know what it sounds like to be stabbed in the back? Because obviously, Lee he was part of one of the.
He was in the military.
He was in the military. He was not only was he in the military. He was essentially in the SAS. He was in the special forces, and then, but also he was he's the only actor to ever play in a Hobbit film who knew Tolkien. Yeah, who actually met Tolkien. Yeah.
It was amazing. He was.
When you read, I mean, obviously, parts of his life have been sort of hyperbolized and exaggerated and stuff like that. But And he himself had admitted that he sort of leaned into it a little bit. But still, what a life, man! That's
amazing.
the definition of a full life. Yeah.
Very spectacular. I think he's a Giga Chad. I would say Chris
Yeah.
Is a Giga
Oh yeah.
Chad. He was super cool. I wish I could have met him. He was a really cool dude. But I think like, so talking about Pakistan, well, he was secular. Like, they wanted Pakistan to be a secular state for people who were Muslim brown people. That was the goal of Pakistan, sort of like Israel. It was the same kind of goal. That we're going to make a secular state that protects this minority people. But then these fanatical people came into power, military people came into power, and they used religion in order to consolidate power for themselves. It's very disgusting. It's very gross. And this is what we see. It's the same pattern that we see all over. And, Pakistan, it's tragic. There was so much potential, and it's very tragic because these fanatics have power. And they, there's like vigilante justice. And who was hanging out there? Osama bin Laden, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, all of these horrible terrorists, they're hiding out there. And I'm like, there's no stability that these terrorists can go and just live there. I'm like, I feel very bad for Pakistan. And they're attacking Sufi shrines, like mystical shrines. They're attacking them there. There's lots of bombing. There's a lack of stability. And I'm like, Pakistan is a tragedy. It's like really a tragedy. And it's like, and I don't think people really understand the degree of the tragedy, because can you imagine if,
it sounds
it
sounds very similar to what happened towards the end of the Ottoman Empire, when obviously, the Wahhabis, the Ottoman Empire had a huge the West had a huge moderating and a modernizing effect on the Ottoman Empire, and then the Wahhabis really didn't like it. They saw it as essentially as haram, and they obviously started their insurgency and just started ripping the Ottoman Empire down from the inside. It essentially turned into a civil war.
That's right.
It does seem as though, like in the West, specifically in the UK and France, we're having that problem now, in that we've had a huge number of Muslims from the Pakistan area come into our country and into the UK. They've emigrated here. The vast majority of them legally, so we are in part responsible for this. But they seem to become, when they get to the UK, and then they will move into areas like Bradford or certain areas of London and essentially ghettoize themselves. And we end up with these little sub-states where they sort of turn inward, and their religion just reinforces itself, and it's sort of like they're using it as like a cultural shield, because the UK is such a moderate, modern, not very religious place at all. I mean, there is something about some parts of Islam that just is very, 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 very reluctant to not secularize so much, but more to sort of modernize and temper itself. It's like we have a big issue at the moment where, so for example, a lot of the second generation sons and daughters of Pakistani migrants that have come to UK, they tend to move in one of two directions. They either westernize, and then when their parents try to marry them off to their first cousins, they go, "Are you fucking mad? No, that's not going to happen." Or,
Are you mental?
Yeah, you mental, bruv. Not doing that.
I would say one thing that I think is important.
But then, sorry, one sec makes it easier. Or disastrously, they go in the other direction and they become even more fanatical than their parents, and that's how we end up with essentially homegrown terrorists that blow up buses.
So the thing I would say is, I actually think the inverse. I think the Ottoman Empire kind of impacted the European states. I don't know if you've read European history, but it was chaotic. It was horrendous. These people didn't know how to wash. They refused to wash. They believed in tortures. It was ridiculous. I mean, like, if you look at, these people, the laws of ancient Europe was horrendous. Like, the penal codes were horrendous. Like, I read about Edinburgh. I was like, this is insane what's going on here. And I'm like, now I think it's great. I'm like, I'm very happy with modern Europe overall. I mean, I think there's some racism, but besides that, I'm like, I mean, I would be fine living in a lot of these places, you know, if I, you know, if I don't face any racism, I would be like, yeah, this is cool. But like I've been in Germany, Ireland, Costa Rica. I'm not sorry, not Costa Rica, Germany, Ireland. I've been to France. I've been to UK. It's been pretty good. Like I haven't had any, you know, I've had a pretty good time in all these places, you know. France was difficult because my French isn't great, but you know, I made it through there. But I think that the Ottoman Empire.
Your English is pretty good. You'll get by over here.
Yeah, I can make it in the UK. But the issue is the Ottoman Empire was doing great until like the very end. Like you're correct, there was a cannibalization because I think the Arabs have had no power for a long time. They've never really ruled the Islamic, like till the Umayyads, like, and maybe the Abbasids, but they really have had no power for centuries. Like after the what is it called? The Mongols ransacked Baghdad.
Yeah,
Arabs really have had no power. It's always been other ethnicities. It's Persians, it's Turks, it's everybody but Arabs. And I'm like, that's fascinating. Like that's a fascinating indictment, I think, for the Arab communities. And it's hard. It's like you've had no power. You've been under other. And you're the ones who know how to speak Arabic. You know, I mean, like of course the Ottomans learned Arabic and they were excellent at it. But like, this is a fascinating thing, and I think there's a lot of trauma within the Arab community. There's a vast amount of trauma where there's not been a lot of autonomy, and so what happened is this fanatical lineage came out where it's like, and actually Daniel does a great job. Funny enough, he does a YouTube video where he critiques Wahhabism. That's why he was called a heretic, because the Wahhabis have betrayed him. Because he basically said, hey, Wahhabism is terrible and it's awful. And they're like, you are a heretic. We like everything else you say, but you are saying that we shouldn't takfir other Muslims.
Let's put it this way: if you know, if I could wave a magic wand and every Muslim born today was more like Daniel than a Wahhabi, then I would wave that magic wand, because I think it would be a net benefit. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with Daniel. I agree with what David has said in the chat, actually. It's people like Isa that suffer from dudes like Daniel, and any sort of, to be honest, extreme fundamental Muslim. But that's the same for all religions. You know, there's almost no criticism that you would lay at, for example, that nutty Christian cult in the States, Westboro Baptists. Yeah, there's no criticism that you would lay at the feet of them that you could lay at the feet of like a mild-mannered Church of England Protestant minister. They're not the same thing at all.
Correct.
But they're both Christian. And obviously, Isa, you know, we've discussed this before. You suffer with the same problem as a mysticist. You're, you know, one of the most mild-mannered, sort of moderate Muslims that would exist, and you would be welcome almost everywhere. Ironically, with the exception of a significant number of the Muslim states. So, it's just. It's such a fucking mess. We've, you know, the fact that we can't even agree across cultures, even though going back to the debate, even though cultures do have sort of the protective instinct, like the fact that we can't even agree that, okay, if you know, if your wife or your daughter or anybody who you're responsible for needed protecting, that you would step in and you would protect them. But that doesn't mean that you need to put them in a bag and follow them down the street with a stick just in case somebody looks at them sideways. You know, these are two totally different attitudes to, I wouldn't even say fulfilling the same role or the same purpose. One is treating a person like property, like chattel, and one is just being there as sort of like a safety net, a support if they need it. You know, being there to help if necessary.
I have Peter Collins says, loving Yerba Mate Talks, keep up the great work. Max, well, it's not just me. I've got a bunch of help from everyone. So, but yes, we're doing awesome. So thank you for that. I have saved, but I lost it because I'm a fucking dummy. Oh, Christian Hoge says, honestly, it's a myth that ancient Europe didn't wash. I've read a chronicle, I think it was Voltaire, that talked about the French court and how when you went into the palaces, the smells would knock you over. And there was I think it was a French king that he took a bath twice. The day he got married and after he died. So actually once. But there's probably some embellishments to the story, but yeah, at some point, personal hygiene wasn't what it is today.
I'm not saying that it's extremely that it was absolutely not at all, but it's completely different. It's like you said, it's very different. There wasn't like like us, we're ritualistically bathing like every day. That's not what was happening. We know that that's a fact, So
can I just share my screen quickly?
Yes.
Can I? How do I do that?
In the middle, there should be a button that says present.
Oh, there we go. Share screen.
Ray X Chic. Dry wipe isn't wash. I agree. We call that, because of the way that it rhymes, we call that in Spanish the Polish bath, which is the arms, the arms, the feet, and the butt, something like that. Can you zoom in a little bit, because it's a little bit small.
Oh, what's going on here? You're gonna have to forgive me, Max. I don't.
No, it's okay. I can't believe Caesar is really taking us to Britain. Who knows what kind of loot we'll find? Probably tons of gold and temples ready to be plundered. Do you guys even practice agriculture? Strange looking blokes, aren't they? Hope they stay away from a rock pile.
I always thought that was funny. How do I stop presenting now?
The same button.
I'll stop screen. There we go. Yeah, I always thought that was funny because like Britain is, modern Britain is sort of 400 or 500 years old, but then the Romans came along and they provided a load of modernization. They, it's a weird thing, like this notion that like the Dark Ages were some sort of completely uncultured, like horrendous period of time, and there were obviously parts of it that were absolutely bloody awful. But that was sort of like a necessary thing that Europe had to go through to come out the other side as the slightly more enlightened and civilized culture that it is now. I think we do have this horrible habit of judging. We tend to judge the past based on the technology that they had available or the knowledge that they had available. Like if you didn't have a good understanding of like germs, disease, bacteria, viral infections, like if you were doing something that we would do today in order to protect yourself from that, it was just a coincidence. But that doesn't mean that they weren't as smart as we were. It doesn't mean they didn't have the same intellectual capacity as we were. And if anything, I think in part we should probably look back at them with a degree of awe, with looking at the buildings that they managed to build or the infrastructure that they managed to put in place, given the technology that they did have.
That's fair, yeah.
We're struggling to put in a railway from London to Edinburgh at the moment for any reasonable amount of money. It's financially crippling us. And we had our industrial revolution and railways 200 years ago. This should be easy for us, but we're making it look difficult by comparison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I sometimes refer to ancient people as primitive, but I don't mean it in a despective way. They just didn't know as much as we do. But it is commendable that they actually managed to survive the world, like literally sucking ass and being like horrible and devastating and gloomy, and they managed to get over
guilty of it.
and continue living.
I'm guilty of it sometimes as well. Like sometimes when I'm having these discussions with the religious fundamentalists, I'm like, you know,
yes,
why have you picked up the morality of Iron Age goat herders when you could pick up the morality of Aristotle?
Right. Or more, or forward, like Siddhartha Gautama, or like.
Well, the reason I pick Aristotle is because I'm tend towards virtue ethics, and obviously Aristotelian virtue ethics is, that's where they have their broadly. Most people think they have their foundations in, so that's why I tend to pick up Aristotle.
Fair enough. Yeah, I was wondering what this message was, but I missed this one. So the four humors. Yeah. This is from like medieval, the sanguine, choleric, melancholic, and phlegmatic humor. Don't you love that, when we didn't know anything about medicine and we thought that just like bleeding people was the best?
Exactly. There was a lot of it.
Yeah.
And also, like, bathing isn't necessarily
panning.
Like, even if someone goes into a bath, that doesn't necessarily make you clean, because you have all the stuff that's in there. That's why you take things like you usually have a bath and a shower. You do things like that. You don't just take a bath and that makes you clean. You might be soothed in a bath, but that is all the particles and stuff are in that water. So
there's a reason why people give you shitty looks if you get into a hot tub at a gym without having a shower first.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or the swimming pool that it's filled with chlorine, but you also have to kind of wash up a little bit. And also soap, a really big deal. If you just wash yourself with water, you might remove some things, but there's others that.
Well, you'll remove quote unquote dirt, but you won't be clean.
Yeah. Right.
So, but soap's such a primitive cleaning agent. I mean, it's tallow and lye, and you get the lye from hardwood ash. So you need the ability to kill animals and make fire, and you can make soap.
Yeah, but it was such a. David says too much soap is not good. That's in general, too much of anything isn't good. Like if you. This idea that people are getting weaker because we are overusing, soap and sanitizing gels and that kind of thing. There is, some. I would still rather use it in a normal amount. I am kind of a little bit anal about my hands because I work in the computer. My hands are.
If you're doing that with If you're doing that with your hands, Max, you should definitely wash them afterwards.
Yeah, I didn't realize. But my hands are super soft. I don't have a working man's hands. I get complimented on my hands being like really soft because I don't have calluses. I've worked in the computer since I'm 20 years old.
I don't know if you can see that. If the camera will adjust, there you go. I managed to drive a nail into the palm of my hand a couple of days ago. I was shifting fence panels and there was a screw sticking out the side of the fence panel and I just clamped my hand onto the side of it without realizing it was there. So that was fun and games. So my hands are fucked.
If I would do that, I would just get stabbed like the whole way. Like, Jesus, my hands are weak. Like, cat, I'm hurting so much because my cat attacks my hands a lot. And because they're not rugged or anything, I get hurt like really quickly when he bites me or he scratches me.
It's interesting. I was talking to my when you say about the immune system getting like us getting weaker because we're too clean, that is true. So the recommendation now is that you're supposed to introduce nuts to young children as early as as early as you can in order to mitigate the like nut allergies that later in life. You need to expose to these things later in life, early as possible, in order to so that your immune system doesn't overreact as your immune system's developing. So babies are protected by their mother's immune system for the first sort of 6 to 9 months of life, potentially a little bit longer if you're breastfeeding, because the colostrum from breastfeeding informs the immune system as well. And then after a little while, the infant's immune system takes over, but the infant's immune system is also learning at the same time as it's protected by its mother's immune system. So this is like a great opportunity to be exposed to things that may potentially cause you harm in the future that won't cause you harm because you're protected by the mother's immune system, but your own immune system, the baby's own immune system will learn. And it's the same reason as ideally you want children to get chickenpox earlier in life, because chickenpox is less of a problem than, what's the adult version of it?
When you
that's
get
really nasty.
As an adult,
But also there's they've done studies around young children that live in rural farming communities and small holdings, or even families that have got things like large pets like dogs and what have you. It's not completely conclusive, but they think that they can draw a signal in the data to show that there are less incidents of childhood illness from those, like absences from school and things, from those children that live in those environments, because frankly they're being exposed to more. I mean,
I had this experience when my nieces were born, when my first one was born. My sister give her cookies, she told me. So she gave me cookies, and I was sitting there on the floor with her, and she was eating, like, instead of eating the cookies from her hand, she put them on the floor and went down like a dog and ate them like straight on the floor. And I was like, Ceci, like, what do I do? Look at what she's doing. And it was like, yeah, it's okay. Everything is clean. Just let her do it.
Yeah.
Because in the end, you can't just like protect them, keep them cuddled all day long.
Look,
you have to, put dirt in their mouth and that kind of a thing.
Well, if you hermetically sealed a human infant into a bubble until they were sort of like 15 years old, and just made sure that they were exposed to absolutely nothing, and then you let them out and started wandering around what is in the West relatively clean nations, they'd be dead by the end of the first week.
Right.
They just have no protection, no experience, everything would hit them all at the same time. It would completely, it would be mad. And obviously we've toyed with this idea in sort of like sci-fi and what have you, haven't we? Like with the War of the Worlds film, where it wasn't military might that repelled them. It was the fact that they had no experience of any of the microbes, the bacteria, or anything, and it killed them. It's why you see when and we come on, we know this from history, like the Native Americans had no experiences of the Western diseases that were brought with us unintentionally when we traveled across, and it killed thousands of them.
Yeah.
And
all across America, from the north to the bottom. It's Provington says, my mother looked after her 12 years younger sister. Directions from my grandpa were wash down as far as possible, then wash up as far as possible, then wash possible. It took years. Shoot, I didn't put the other one. Where's the second part of this? Oh my, no, don't do that to me. Don't tell me half as, here. Before the penny dropped and in a busy train, she cracked up laughing. You have to tell, when there's two messages, I get anxious. Alrighty, we're close to 2 hours. The debate, I think we covered more ground and talked about more stuff with a little bit more depth than in the debate, which usually happens in the after shows. But it was nice to see just Daniel floundering, and when she told him, like, Daniel, you're kind of too worried about who I'm with and that kind of stuff. Daniel's going to propose to me by the end of the debate. I laughed so hard. She did great. And I think just for that, she wins the debate. And I'll fight anyone who tells me otherwise. Let's do final thoughts and we'll be on our way. Tomorrow is Friday. Don't have anything planned. But Saturday on MDD, there is atheism or Christianity, which is true. And this is Craig, FTFE, against Apollos. So Joe Heron corrects me and says, today is Friday. Until I go to bed and I reset, the day doesn't change. So today, it's still Thursday. It changes when I sleep and get up.
Yeah, Max has such a lack of humility that as far as he's concerned, we're operating on Max standard time.
Correct. So... that's how things work. So, Isa, final thoughts. Would you like to go first?
I'll let John go first, and then I'll go.
All right.
Yeah, it quite disappointing. I think that Daniel's position is just loaded with inconsistencies, and I think that's fundamentally because of the fundamentally because of the fundamental religious position that he's coming from. I don't see how you can have the dissonance was high. Like, I mean, at the start, he was talking about sort of the protection of women, guardianship, them having to to submit to their man, etc. The protective instinct I can maybe get on board with, but then when at the end of the debate he's been chastised for, but he's doing all of this just to get the 72 virgins at the end. Where are the 72 virgins going to come from? And he goes, I don't care. It sounds like a good time to me. Like, I seriously question his motivations. So any part of his of what he was saying where I was like, well, I mean, I suppose maybe if I was trying to be charitable, I might be able to view that in this way. Just he completely blew it out of the water, because I'm like, you haven't, as far as I can tell, you have no respect for women. You don't, any action that you take, it isn't to protect them, it's to be possessive and to have basically just have them as chattel, which is completely antithetical to the way I view sort of the collaborative partnership that I've had with the women in my life, and the protective instinct that I have, for my daughter. So I do much more align with the female prophet in her attitude, but I don't think her argument was particularly great either. I think it was, how can I put this without?
She needs to improve, I think.
She needs to improve her technique, and I'm not suggesting that I would necessarily have done any better. But I was getting fourth wave feministy tones from her when she was saying things like, well, if you're going to behave like that towards us, Daniel, then every time we get pregnant, we're just going to abort it. That to me was an abhorrent argument to make.
It is a little bit.
I understand where she was going with it.
Yeah.
But like the vast majority of women in the world would think that is a fucking evil thing to do. I understand she was being a bit hyperbolic, but I wasn't surprised that she said it. I did wonder if she was going to go sort of down like I didn't know if she just meant that's a way of us taking control and you can't do anything about it, because frankly in the West we can't do anything about it. Women have all of the legal protections, rightly so, with regards to that. But I didn't know if she was going to go, well, actually we'll just abort all the male fetuses, because obviously, do you know what I mean? That's well, we'll just kill you when you're most vulnerable. Then there you go, problem solved. We don't need you to protect us anymore. Either way, it's a horrific argument to make, and she completely lost me there. It was totally unnecessary, and I get the feeling that we've got two ideologues on extreme ends of the spectrum just having at one another, and reasonable people in the middle. It's just that's not how we would have this discussion,
No, both were lacking in a sense. I would add to John that if you think that what you want in the afterlife is 72 virgins, you are wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
The best option is 72 slutty bros who know what the fuck they're doing. You're not going to spend eternity teaching them to have sex forever.
Also,
no.
This is the thing. Like, they're not gonna let's say, for argument's sake, if you had you had sex with one of them a week. Well, you're dead for eternity, and you have these virgins for 1.5 years. So, they're not once you've had sex with a virgin, they're no longer a virgin. So it's not like you've just blown yourself up in a busy marketplace, killing God knows who.
Well,
for a non-renewable.
I've heard a couple of things. Number one, that they aren't real people, that they are created specifically because you have a numbers problem, right?
Massively,
they're created specifically for the people in heaven. And the other one, what I heard is that their virginity renews each day or something like that. It's bullshit.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
Isa, final thoughts.
Well, there's a lot here. Where do I start? Okay. Usually I'm very strong, with Daniel usually winning the debates. He does really good, protect religion versus religion. I think in this particular topic, it's a lot more nuanced. It's a lot more complex. There's not really an easy win that you can get with this particular topic. And gender roles and the way that we operate, it's complex. Men have certain abilities, women have certain abilities, other genders have different abilities, however you want to frame that. We all have different kinds of abilities, and we have to kind of be aware of that. And so I think that's difficult. I want to tell you that I have a lot of empathy for Daniel. I don't know if you know Daniel's history, but he has a very traumatic, problematic history from the past. He comes from actually a secular family, so that's a part of why he became very religious, I think. Also, I don't know if you know about his sister, but his sister's name was Donna Hakikajo, and she was abducted when she was 19 years old, probably assaulted and then thrown into the ocean by a predator. So this is well documented on the internet. It's very disturbing. It's very problematic. And I think it probably impacts certain ways of how he views gender roles, because who protected and supported his sister? There wasn't really a man who was supposed to be there to help protect her, against this evil predator, right? And it's a very painful, difficult situation. So I think there's a lot of trauma that's involved with his kind of engagement. I also think Malish has a lot of trauma too. We've heard about her trauma with her ex. She's a single mother. So, I mean, I get that. If I was a single mother that came from kind of, sounds like an abusive relationship, I might not view men in a very high light. I might not view them in that type of way. And I think that's why she takes this on. I get the trauma that women have from previous difficult exes, and coming from Pakistan, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult situation, and this hyperfixation on virginity. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that what these people want is they don't really just want a virgin. They want the fusion. They want the woman who's technically a virgin so they can have the power over the woman, but they want the woman that is experienced. They want both at the same time. That's the idea. They want this conglomerate of both of these fusions, I think they call it the virgin whore complex, something like that. They want this fusion type of thing where they can have it. But the thing is, it's about objectification. It's not really focused on women. I mean, in a lot of these interactions, are they pleasuring the women? Are they going to, how do I say this politically correctly? I'm not going to. I'll just say the phrase. Are they going to lick the clit or not? I mean, that's the question. Are they going to do these things? Or
no,
not?
they won't. No, Daniel, I'm going to do a demonstration. This is Daniel. Are you done? That's it.
Yeah,
Daniel doesn't do that.
It's do you view the sexual relationship with women as a meaning and reciprocal relationship, or do you just view them as a sex doll, basically?
Well, and I think that's the issue that we have in this kind of conversation, is that what's happening. And I think a lot of the time it's like, this is why a lot of men can be very bad lovers, is because they don't actually know how to pleasure the woman, nor do they learn, or nor do they want to try. I mean, they're more interested in pleasuring themselves. And this is like the thing that we as men get this bad rap, because these other men are not, they're not performing sexually in a good way. So now we all get blamed, men who are more open and willing to, do reciprocal relationships,
There's the Western version of that as well. There's a picture I saw, and it was a picture of a bunch of guys at a barbecue, and they all had like the brush cuts and the super tight t-shirts on and the big arms. And the first comment underneath the picture on Facebook was, "This picture looks like it rubbed my left labia for 30 seconds, then asked if I came."
That was cute. But it's just so ridiculous, because you have, it's very antiquated.
Yeah.
These people don't understand romantic relationships. It's very selfish. It's very selfish. And it's a ridiculous kind of space. And I'm thinking about Daniel's opening argument, and I'm like, I hear what he was saying, but I think it really felt like one of those propaganda, scare type ads. And I'm like, this is just not how it really is. Men and women are complex. We're different. And other genders, including the other genders, we're just different beings, and that's okay. We don't all have to be exactly the same. We all bring different things to the table. That's it. It's really silly to say one partner does more. And I wanted to go on that point too about, people who work in the home. It's a hard job. It's hard to maintain the house. That may even be more exhausting than going out to a job and just sitting at a cubicle and typing on the keyboard. I'm saying that's a very stereotypical kind of job, but it's like,
sorry to interrupt you, sir. I'm gonna have and Max that matter. I've just had like 5 missed calls from my wife for some reason, so I'm gonna have to shoot and find out what's going on. She never normally rings me quite so aggressively. Nice to see you both again. Sorry for interrupting you. Closing.
No problem. Take care.
Cool. Catch you guys later.
I hope everything is okay.
It'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. If it was, she'd have messaged me if it was. But I do like to.
Oh, of course. Happy wife, happy life.
Happy wife, happy life. 100% agree.
See you later, guys. Cheers.
Take care.
Cheers. So I just was saying, like, I feel that this thing is so much more nuanced and more complex, and it's just really silly to take this hyperbolic position that, we as men, we're manly men, and we've got to, protect this woman. I'm like, this is an adult. This is a human being. This is an adult. Why are you infantilizing other humans? Like, it's I don't know. I think it's unhealthy. And I listened to his wife. I've listened to Daniel's wife. Her name's Khalid. She's Egyptian. She's an Egyptian American. And they both went to Harvard. He met her at Harvard, like in the MSA, the Muslim Student Association. And she was thinking about becoming a PhD. Khalid was going to become a PhD.
Yeah, you told me that. I almost cried.
And I was like, wow. I don't know. I mean, if somehow, timelines changed, I happened to met Khalid and I happened to marry her. If it was a different kind of situation, I'd be like, I want you to follow your dream, babe. Like, I want you to be able to do what you want to do. Like, it's not going to hurt me. Like, I want you to be happy. Like, we could still have kids and all of those things, and you could still follow your passion. You don't have to just finish your undergrad degree and that's it. We have other resources. We can make this work. It's America, and we have families. We have both of our families will make this work. That's the way I view it. I think why would you want to take that away? I think it's a really powerful thing, to support your partner in, so that they can be fulfilled in their journey. So, and I've been in school forever, so I'm like, I would definitely want to give that to someone else, let them have that opportunity of exploring and, self-identity. It doesn't bother me at all. But these aren't issues for me. I don't like, if I was married, my woman doesn't have to wear hijab or niqab. She can wear whatever she wants. I don't really care.
Right.
But
yeah, do whatever you do. If you want to wear it, wear it. If you don't.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, it's fine. You have agency, so whatever makes you comfortable.
All right. One thing that got brought up, and I'm sorry that I'm just remembering this now. Daniel doesn't understand why we provide sexual education to children. Daniel, we provide them because, number one, it's important that they're aware of their bodies for hygiene, for purposes of not being aware that there are parts that other people do not get to touch, expressing, basically starting to form their bodily autonomy that even close family are not supposed to touch your private part, your butt, etc., right? Daniel doesn't understand why we do that. It's not because we're sexualizing children. It's because, and I'm going to go down the anecdote route. My mother bought me condoms when I was 11. I went to high school for the first time because my birthday is in April. So I turned 12 in high school already. I had already started class. And I was kind of a nerd yet. I still wasn't what I am today when it comes to, the ladies. But I had already had sexual education at home, in school, and I was going to have sexual education in high school. It was all different, focused on different aspects of sexuality at different ages. And the reason why I've done a bunch of things and still don't have a kid is because I've had the sexual education enough to know that I do not want kids. So I've always taken care of not getting kids, right? And also STDs and that kind of stuff. So it is funny to me that he doesn't understand that educating kids on sex, on drugs, on things like gambling, how you can get addicted to gambling, how you can get addicted to gaming, to shopping, and that kind of stuff, that educating children about the dangers that are out there in the world is the best thing that you can do, because at some time you're just going to have to let them go out into the world alone, and you won't be there to tell them do this or do that. So you have to teach them. And there are some things that take hold better when they are taught earlier. So if you're 15 and you haven't had sexual education and you're going and you're meeting whatever rocks your boat, you're meeting girls, you're meeting boys, whatever it is that you're after, and you get into these situations that you weren't before. Like, for example, now you're alone with the person that you like. And if you don't have the education, things will happen without the proper care. So that's why, if you look at some of the statistics, the communities that are very religious and that teach abstinence only have a lot of teen pregnancy, because they don't get educated on what to do when you start feeling that the hots and you start getting a little bit warm. And I think that was really funny. I think Daniel got demolished today, even though she could have done way better. I think he got he made so dumb, like his arguments were so dumb. He's like, oh yeah, you submit to police, then you should submit to a man. It's not the same. The policeman doesn't get to beat you up or to withhold money from you if you don't do whatever his whims are. The policeman is bound by a code of rules. It doesn't follow, Daniel. And I know that he generally makes better arguments. I don't think he's a bad debater. I think he's a bad faith, like Andrew Wilson. I think they're all shitty debaters, so they have to use tactics like that one, like quote mining papers and citing like a million papers that don't back up what he's saying, because they can't build. It's either because they can't build an argument for their positions, or because their positions are so shitty and they know it that they have to go with the flat earther tactics of lying and being deceitful in a roundabout kind of way. So I think today Daniel got destroyed, like destroyed. And she's a bit too hectic. Yes, she needs to improve. But go watch her first debate. She's way better. And if she continues, to then if she continues down that route, I see her as a potential contender. She dealt with Daniel's like little pussy jabs, like, oh, you like this old man, like, and she dealt with him extremely well. I think she's a really tough lady. She's got some brass ovaries, and I think she did great. Daniel, fuck you. I will try to get her to an interview to talk, to see, to I don't know, talk about her story. And I don't think she has a lot of subscribers. I don't think she will go for it, but I will try. I've tried with people that I thought would never say yes, and they did, like Jaren in the past, and Justin. I really miss that kind of sucks. When I remember that I lost a few like really good videos, I get kind of, oh shit.
Do you think we get those videos or not? Do you think we?
I mean, if you would be willing to ask, yes. I don't want to talk to Ocean anymore, ever.
I don't mind talking to him. I mean,
if you want to ask, if you say like, hey, would you give me? Because I'm pretty sure that he didn't delete them. I'm pretty sure that he has them on the back end. But it's also like, it's like 400 videos. So it will be like a challenge to get. But I don't know. I mean, if you want to ask, ask. I wouldn't. If we could get some of those, we could like put them up little by little. Oh, Isa, would you like us to, because we still need to like put out some content, and you know that I mirrored 2 of my debates. Do you want me to, can I mirror your debate with David Wood here?
You can mirror anything. You can take Matt Dillahunty. You can take Apostate Prophet.
Ooh, okay. We'll do a little series. So the next week coming up during the afternoon, we'll be premiering some of those. We also have a veganism debate that Dr. J did. So I will ask Dr. J if he would like to get that one too. But yeah, we're very well on our way to get that monetization back. And with that, Isa, thank you so much. Everyone in the audience, thank you for the support. Let me just remind you of this while we get set up. There we go. You can, if you would like to send a little donation so we can keep this going, until we get the super chats. I'll leave the link there. We're good. We're not swimming in money. We're good to go. But a donation is always appreciated. Before we go, make sure to do the social things: like, share, subscribe, send this to a friend, send this to your significant other, go to the corner, yes, the corner of your street, and just subscribe to Sherma Mate Talks. And that way we can share the love for the channel. We'll see you probably on Saturday. If there's nothing, if tomorrow I'm bored, we can maybe do something. I don't know. Don't forget the cat song. Okay, I can play that while we go. Give me a moment. Have you heard that song, Isa?
What's the song?
It's a song Emma made with AI. It's called "Oh My Cat."
No, I haven't.
It's funny song. Hold on. All right. I need to change the stage to that. Yes. I'll leave you with this song that Emma made. I'm remixing it. I have plans to work the remix on Saturday and Sunday because I've been super busy at work. But yeah, Emma made this song for me. It's called "Oh My Cat." Thank you everyone for being here. Aloha, Aldebaran, David, Andrew Christopherson, Joe Heron, and Lindsay Bow, and special thanks to John, Dr. J, and everyone who joined us today. Thank you so much. We'll catch you on the next one. I'll leave you with this, and we'll see you. Let me confirm before, because I need to run to the toilet. Let me confirm that. Sorry. Let me confirm that the sound is coming through, because twice I played this song and twice I fucked it up, and I played it with no sound. Can you hear that? Someone please do a.
I can't hear it.
Oh, okay, perfect. Let's go. There we go.
Yeah, I can't hear it myself. Do I have control? Oh no, because it's not from my side. Sorry. We'll wait till he comes back. We couldn't hear it.
Wait. Oh my God! I did it again? No. But Isa, you told me you heard it.
No, I said I couldn't hear it.
Oh, dude. When will I get this right? We're lucky that I went to the toilet and came back quickly.
Yes, you did.
All right, hold on. Share screen. Chrome tab, you dummy. All right, here we go.
Max is streaming like it's hot and bright. Got guests discussing day and through the night. Philosophers, debunkers all in stride, unaware of the dangers lurking close inside. A furry shadow YouTube chat holds its breath. A whisker twitching, promising swift death. Oh, my cat, he's biting, he's clinging, he won't let go. Right there on his nose, putting on a show. Max screams out loud, disrupting the flow. Oh, my cat. Oh, my cat. please let go. Dr. J is citing verses old and wise, talking about the heavens right before Max's eyes. He points a finger, making his bold case. Then a fluffy missile launches at Max's face. Fangs find purchase, a furry dangly weight, leaving Max to scream and seal his fate. Oh, my cat, he's biting, he's clinging, he won't let go. Right there on his nose, putting on a show. Max screamed out loud, disrupt the flow. Oh, my cat. Oh, my nose. Please let go.
No.
Isa and John debunking flat earth lies, showing curvature beneath the digital skies. The proving globes, the signs crystal.
Dude, playing this song while the freaking cat is like in the middle of an attacking spree against me is wild.
I have the same situation
All of
too.
a sudden,
Wow, John was mentioned too. I love it.
Yeah. She put some work into it. It's great.
frantic yelp assaults the ear. A wrestling match right in the camera frame. The nose biter's back, it's always the same. Oh, my cat, he's biting, he's clinging, he won't let go. Right there on his nose, putting on the show. Max screams out loud, disrupting the flow. Oh, my cat, my damn nose. Let go.
No!
Batman drops and doing what Batmen do, suckling on a joint, maybe one or two. Perhaps the cat just caught a wicked whiff, or maybe Max's nose offers a tasty sniff. Another lunge, a lightning fast attack, there's no escaping, there is no turning back. Oh, my cat, he's biting, he's clinging, he won't let go. Right there on his nose, putting on a show. Max screams out loud, disrupting the flow. Oh, my cat. What damn nose though? Oh, my cat.
Woohoo! Thank you, Emma, for that. And we are out on our way. We'll catch you probably tomorrow. Take care. Have a good night, and we'll see you